The village was burned. The wells were corrupted, and the animals were killed. The food was destroyed. It was reported back to command that the Americans had won a great victory after a fierce firefight, killing 128 Viet Cong fighters and, unfortunately, of course, catching 22 civilians in the crossfire. Commanding General Westmoreland congratulated the men on an outstanding job, and back home, Stars and Stripes reported that U.S. infantrymen had killed 128 communists in a bloody day-long battle. In reality, they had murdered something close to 500 innocent people. A few whistleblowers reported on what had happened that day up the chain of command, but it was just ignored. It would be another year and a half before investigative journalist Seymour Hersh brought the story to the American public, a contribution for which he was and still is by many people regarded as an anti-American communist sympathizer. Calley maintained to the very end that he was following orders and that he had done his job, but a court-martial found him guilty of murdering no fewer than 20 people himself and sentenced him to life in prison. But 2 days after the sentence was passed, President Nixon ordered Calley released and confined to house arrest during the appeal process. In August 1971, his sentence was reduced from life to 20 years. Captain Medina, who was seen personally by Hugh Thompson's helicopter crew kicking a woman on the ground and then shooting her in the head, he denied giving the orders that virtually every man in the company agreed that he had given, and he was acquitted of all charges. Of the 26 men charged with the crime after the My Lai Massacre, only Lieutenant William Calley was ever convicted, and in the end, he served only 3.5 years on house arrest before being paroled, and he walks free to this day. The Secretary of the Army was later quoted saying that Calley had been paroled because at the time he had truly believed that he had just been following his orders. And Calley tries to make much that same point, but he puts it slightly differently. In an interview later, he said, quote, "Personally, I didn't kill any Vietnamese that day. I mean me. Personally. I represented the United States of America. My country."
territory and that territory and these rights and those rights. They will simply be forced to stop war. And then there will come a deadly wound in our peace system. What is a deadly wound to a peace system? It's when it breaks down. Once again. And one of those begins to take up warfare, the war of the arms, shall we say, bullets flying, bombs blasting, etc. Once again. The absence of that, or in other words, to have a so-called hear and understand, verse 4, but ye the UNPI are firing bullets and bombs at one another. What day? So hear and understand, verse 4, but ye brethren are not in darkness, but that day. What day? This day of the peace, when there is no peace, should overtake you as a thief. That leads up to this time of peace, when there is no peace, is what leads up to the return of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, Yeshua Messiah, Jesus the Christ.